beautiful beings, if you've switched on to this video. Just finished my yoga practice, hanging out here on this beautiful permaculture oasis in Zulu. And this is not a new topic that I'm going to speak about. Are there any new topics out there to speak about? But I have this plays in my thought process a lot, what I'm about to share with you all. And it's this the paradox, right? The whole thing around the overwhelm of information that's splurted out all over the planet right now and has been accelerating for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And of course, different people talking about different scenarios that may be playing out in our life on this planet, the multi-dimensions, the infinite possibilities, and it can become quite confusing and overwhelming is the word I like to use. And so of course I explore many different areas. Well, not of course, you may not know that, but I explore many different areas, read and listen to different people, and of course you can only fit in so much in any one day. And you may have heard me say that for a long time my mission has been to clean and purify my own subconscious conditioning, my own cultural conditioning, and support others to explore that themselves, inquire into that themselves. What does it mean to love yourself? What is truth? Exploring death and the monetary system and society as a whole, and seeing the flaws in that, and then inquiring what is true and what is false, right, among our society, with all the competitiveness and lies and deceit and the invisible prison, as I call it. So as I was doing my practice today, and after a conversation yesterday and a number of things that I've seen, that have popped up into my field, was this conversation I had with a friend, and he's like just about to have a baby, and he was sharing his fears, his fears about life, fears about his children's future, fears about the depleting resources on the planet, fears about the potential apocalypse stroke decline of our civilization that we're moving into. He's also a marine conservationist, so he loves the sea, and he's studied a lot about the seas and understands the depleting coral reefs and the dying of the coral reefs, and how when the coral reefs start to die in any sort of ecosystem, then all of the ecosystem starts to die as well. And of course you hear the many different stories about the rainforest, the lungs of our planet's dying out, and rivers drying up, and freak storms and freak weather now, and the massive talks about global warming and the rising of sea levels, and potential small island states being submerged in water in our coming years to come, and all this earthquakes, random earthquakes happening, and of course then scientists and different people at NASA saying that all the planets are changing, and the sun's changing, and the sun flares, and you hear it all, and you get little blips of information about different things, and unless you go right into it and study it and listen to all the different people speaking about it and the opinions and the ideas, and look at the potential around what could possibly happen, it's really hard to get your head around it, because most people, 80% of the population, are just trying to strive to earn their money, earn a living, pay their rent, feed themselves, and have no time to explore that actually, are the resources dying out? Do I have time to watch these documentaries to research what's going on? yeah, it's just like, then people are having babies and getting married and thinking like, it's all just, just have fun and explore and travel and see the world. And underneath, there's this potential that there's just like so much of it all just depleting before our eyes, but we're blind to see what's actually happening. And then of course you have studies of permaculture, like I'm on this permaculture research farm, and there's many solutions out there, and permaculture being one of them, and of new ways of living and sustaining ourselves, and and anyway, permaculture is a whole science in itself, letting nature teach us how to use systems to grow and sustain and live and so on. It's not just about organic farming. So that's one. And then you've got like different people out there, marine biologists and scientists and brains, huge brains of our time, coming up with different solutions. And that young boy, I can't remember his name, who's creating this system to clean all the seas, and by 2020 or 2022 he wants to have cleaned out most of the plastic out of the seas. I always forget his name. Boyan Slat, thank you so much. And I mean, these are just like, I'm just talking about two potential solutions of some of the things that are happening in terms of the pollution of our planet. But then you look at, people are talking about, just look at the pollution in the cities and the density of the cities and the energetic exchanges and the violence. And then, and then I could just list here now, so many things of violence that are taking place through ignorance and unconscious acts, and upholding beliefs that are, really just fictitious and made up, and creating so much war and suffering and poverty. And then you've got, of course, the whole thing going on right now with illegal immigrants and borders, and we can't take these people in, and you can't open the doors to these people. They're not us, and this is our land, and and all this stupidity around even ownership of land, and like, this is our land, this is the border, it goes across this sea and across this part of the forest, and we own it, and it's called this, and or like, oh, we need a certain amount of money. That's another thing. It's like, we can't help the forests, we can't help the ecosystems. We need billions of pounds and infrastructure and engineering and equipment in order to really make a difference in the world, or to help out. And then you have to laugh and go, well, didn't we create the money? Don't we create the money? Don't we create the engineering? Don't we create the infrastructure? Don't we create the systems anyway, and the tools and stuff we need? So why would we all of a sudden go, well, the planet's dying out and could die out in the next 10 to 20 years, wipe out our civilization, wipe out our species, but we actually need 25 years to raise the money so that we can actually help the problem that could potentially save us. It's like, what? You've got to be joking me, right? It's got to be like some facade, some ludicrous amnesia stroke neurosis, even in that conversation. No, it must go through government policy, and we must make sure that legislation is right, and there's a lot of red tape around all of this right now because, in the monarchy and all that, and we have no money really to go around. There's just no money. Can you believe it? Yeah, we're actually broke. In fact, we're so broke, the whole of the economy is collapsing, but let's, all of a sudden there seems to be £25 billion invested from some random guy over in the corner of the world who just was sitting on a load of money. So it's like, it's just absurd when you actually, look at it all. So I guess my thing today is like, I live with this, drive of this sense, which at times I question could also just be a complete delusion of like humanity, humans, the people, waking up to the absurdity and actually acting very differently than they have done in their let's say their sleep state, their neurosis, our sleep state, our ignorance. And then we start to unite and come together in my sort of raging optimistic way. And I often quote the noosphere. There's a beautiful TED talk called The Noosphere by Ian McKenzie that talks about this sense that as a species, as this sort of evolving of the planet, we're moving from this the geosphere, biosphere, into the noosphere, and it's all about unity and community and coming together. And you're sort of hearing this dialogue around the world, of course, at the moment. Small communities building up, people sustaining themselves, eco villages, and of course, these different ways to come together and use resources and live more, let's say, simply and in tune with nature. And then you've got some people just say that's just hippie and that's crazy and that's never going to help anything, because of the fear of the big system and the big society and all of the scarcity and lack and competition and competitiveness that is actually upheld that, around the monetary system and all the other systems, and then you've got the people that are scared to lose their patriarchy, lose their country or their systems that they've upheld and lived for, because we've got generations that have lived in them and so identified with them that the idea of them collapsing is just brings up so much fear and from death. It's all about death at the core, the dying of these ideas, the dying of these concepts, the dying of these structures and systems that have been put in place. People hold on to that for dear life. It's like they hold on. No, this is my belief, and it's my belief system. BS, belief system. And I must uphold it at all measures. And so this is what we're really dealing with and facing day to day. Even if you're not aware of this, it's happening all around, all across the globe. And somebody wrote to me recently, and I'm going to find that email and do another video on this, but he wrote to me, saying about the revolution of love, because he said, oh, you're talking about the revolution of love, and if people love themselves, we will create a better world. And he's like, well, yeah, well, he sort of, in a nutshell, he said, F loving yourself, F the revolution of love, what about, and listed this whole thing, fear-mongery, and it was totally valid what he was saying, but of the bees dying out and the ecosystem's dying out and loads of other stuff. And he said, what good is loving ourselves gonna actually do? And of course, from his perspective, has a very valid point. And that from my perspective, I'm saying, in my raging optimistic way, that unless we come back to ourselves, unless we truly love ourselves, and really, I don't just mean I love myself from an ego perspective. I'm on about really honoring and acknowledging the intelligence of your being. Really, looking inside, through meditation and through other means, other practices, to really see what's happening and see that you are, the micro macro of what's happening in the world. And then when you come here and really look at your own ecosystem and look at your own self and how you're showing up and how you're contributing to the whole of this interbeing, this interconnected, mysterious, magnificent, majestic unfolding, when you can really own that, look at that, all this other stuff drops away. I don't mean that all the violence. I mean all this other, needs, wants, and superficial crap that we get caught up in, traveling, looking at stuff, earning money, going, even having children and getting married and all this stuff. It starts to drop away. What is really your contribution, our contribution on this planet, and how are our actions really, how have they created what we are witnessing, and how can our actions from a more conscious perspective, make a difference in the world and change the world? Because, it's only a small group of people that ever did change the world. In terms of, when I say change the world, I mean, not, the planet's doing its thing, there's, intelligence happening that is way beyond you or me. But I mean in terms of what we do in terms of our society and cultures and humanity. So I just wanted to share that today on this video. And if it resonates with you, or there's anything in here you want to spark off a conversation or so on, just leave a comment in the thread. And this is just some of my thought processes, just a little bit of them in this moment. Not to proclaim that I have all the answers and solutions, but there are definitely a lot more solutions than we may be seeing in the mainstream media. There's a lot more solutions and ways to move through this transition than, just fear-mongering. And there's fear-mongering everywhere, and you must remember that our human species thrive on fear, on drama, on gossip, on, even conspiracy theories, some of them are bang on, and I look at them myself, and some of them, you have to question them and go into them, and everyone's got their own, justification and upholding of a whole heap of crap that unless you do the research, you and I know nothing about. So it's that lovely saying that I often share, that's like, we know what we know what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So, that being in the unknown, being in the not knowing is sometimes the best place to be right now, rather than trying to work it all out, or trying to, get caught up in a whole heap of fear of potentials, possibilities that also may not actually occur. So do the research, look at all that you're seeing, and tune into your own intuition. Does this feel like true? Does this feel like this is what's happening? And then we can make actually conscious response. We can respond rather than react and add more fear to the soup. We can actually respond consciously and act from that place. And that's really what I, really try my best. It's a practice, let me tell you. Try my best to go, okay, how can I contribute to the continuation of life, pro-life, continuation of our species? How can I just live in that space myself? And that's a daily inquiry, and that's what I also invite others to look at on the workshops and the retreats and so on that we do, is like, how can we clean ourselves of all the noise or the lies, strip away the lies, and then from that place really move into inspired action, from a place of truth, from a place of purity, from a place of refinement and responsibility, ability to respond. And then your actions, if you know anything about the morphogenic field, and then your actions, every action you make anyway is influencing the whole, but then your conscious actions, you start to realize, wow, this is really plugging into the morphogenic field. This is really plugging into the interconnectedness of all things. And it's doing that anyway, even if you're unconscious to it. But as we always say now, is like, we're practicing no matter what. We really are. Everything you do is practice. You're practicing something today, whatever it is. If you're angry and aggressive and stressed and procrastinating, that's what you're practicing. If you're, practicing yoga, or practicing meditation, or practicing mindfulness, or empathy, or universal responsibility, then that's what you're practicing. But no matter what, you're practicing something. So the question is, what are you practicing, and how are your practices contributing to the whole? Whether that be your community, your colleagues, your environment, all of it. So there you go, nice hug. Huggings. So there you go, some food for pondering, and sending you all love wherever you are. We're moving through a huge transition, and it's a very exciting time, and there's great potential, great opportunity. There's opportunity in the lack, and the information is a lot of information, but we can, with intuition and awareness, really sieve out what's true and what's false. And as I like to say, walk as healing balm. Love yourself, and then look at this beautiful dog giving me, right, it just farted. Oh, I farted and he farted. Oh, man, he just dropped a bomb on me. See, just in any moment, bombs can be dropped. But, seriously, like when we talk about 2 billion of our species in poverty on less than $2 a day, so much, so much suffering if we look out there. But if we only look at that, we don't see the opportunity in the lack. We just look at more, more and more suffering. I don't mean avoid that, don't bypass that. But use it as fuel to realize, okay, I don't have to live like that. I don't have to adhere to this society and the rules and regulations and legislations and all this stuff if I don't see them being pro-life and, fully inclusive to the whole. And that's how we make change. And yeah, as I say, when we love ourselves, we become one cell. 60 trillion cells make up one cell. And when we're loving that, and we're very honouring and respectful and taking full responsibility, sovereignty of this whole cell, then this one cell becomes the healing balm. It becomes the healing cell among all the other cells on the planet, you see. And a cancer is a disease cell. It's a cell that's disconnected and stopped communicating from others, yeah. So, so rather than be a cancer on the planet as a whole, we be the antidote. And that's pretty phenomenal. It's a great choice. And if you want to know about the cells, cellular, you want to look at Bruce Lipton and look at biology of belief and look at the cell, and how the cells, 60 trillion cells make up one cell, and each cell has all the intelligence as our one cell. It's mind-blowing when you start to look at life on a cellular level and how systems work from that, that perspective of the micro-macro. And it's so phenomenal. You realize you're something far greater than your little Simon in a so-called human body. You start to realize the intelligence that you are. And that changes everything. That changes your beliefs, that changes what you think you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. It changes the way you show up in society, changes the way you view culture, society, and the world. So, boom, boom. Sending your love wherever you are. The revolution of love is in motion. I choose to see the solutions and the potential of the human spirit uniting and coming together and moving beyond all the suffering and the angst and the amnesia and the lies and the neurosis and the competitiveness and deceit and violence. I choose to believe in the human spirit. I choose to trust in love. It's beyond belief, actually. All belief is flawed. Belief in the middle says L-I-E. Most of the beliefs are lies too.